It's fun time.
So that, again, that's one of our partners, Melmark, and they do all the silk screening from small businesses all the way up to the big guys, including like Stussy and a number of the brands out on the show floor. And that was a great video just showcasing how the entire process it goes through. So with that, we're going to jump into our next speaker, and then we'll take like a little break right afterwards, and then we'll go into some more for the rest of the session. So with that is Peter. There he is in the back, right? So Peter's going to come up and explain to him, all of you, about what iSync does, and then also how it helps your business. And then this is definitely a key thing for a lot of you, and he's going to really go into description about it all.
Okay, hi guys. So my name is Peter Boyson. I'm the founder of a software company called iSync. And we've got a product called Sync, which is developed for the apparel industry. We've got over 120 brands that use our software. And what it's designed to do is manage an entire style from inception right the way through to completion and distribution. But what I'm here today to talk to you about is maximizing order fulfillment in an omni-channel environment. And it's quite a mouthful, but what are we talking about is, okay, with what's happening in the market and specifically around brick and mortar stores, it's becoming more relevant to have as many sales channels for your product. And there's so many different channels available. Each channel requires that you provide a single source of inventory in order to make sure that you're maximizing your sales. So you've got your B2C channels, you've got e-commerce, you've got brick and mortar stores, you've got internal sales reps, external sales reps, pop-up stores. It gets super complicated. You can have your shops buying online, delivering in store, buying in store, getting it shipped to your house. And all of these different channels all rely on having a single source of inventory. And that's really the kicker with making sure that you are maximizing sales in an omni-channel environment. And what I found is working with about 120 different brands, we found that there's two areas which people often overlook or haven't really put a lot of effort in managing. And that's so I'm going to talk about two different subjects. The first is providing your sales reps with an up-to-the-minute inventory and work in progress visibility, so they're actually in a position to be able to sell product that you actually have. And then the second part is calculating the inventory for each different sales channel. So what I did is I took one of our existing customers, someone that's just been onto our product, that just implemented in the last 10 months, and I thought, okay, they just implemented our sales order, our iPad sales app, and our web-based sales module for their sales reps. And we thought, well, let's have a look at how their order fulfillment's changed since they implemented the software. And if you think about what is order fulfillment? So maybe I should say, order fulfillment is if a customer buys 10 products from you and you deliver 8 of those products, you've got an 80% order fulfillment. So the idea is you busting to try and make as many sales as you can in your product. The problem is what we find is a lot of customers, a lot of brands aren't actually delivering on all the product that they're selling. And that can be a major problem for your brand. It often leads to poor sell-throughs, obviously, markdowns of your product, because you end up with product that you, at the end of the season, that you can't get rid of. And that really kills your brand value. You're trying to grow your brand, you're trying to add brand value, and the next minute you're actually clearing product through clearance channels, and that's diminishing your brand value. So what it is, I looked at this customer, I said, you know, someone has just gone into the product, and when they've implemented the software, what actually happened to their order fulfillment? And if you have a look at this graph, and I'm going to get a little technical here, but that blue line represents what their order fulfillment was prior to actually implementing the software, and the green line represents their order fulfillment after implementing the system. And you can see in the very first month, it jumps from 80% to 92%, and then keeps on sort of going up at that figure. And that was pretty strange, because I thought, you know, when you're implementing software, normally there's a big change, so you often have a company sort of taking one step backwards before moving forward. And so how can you have a situation where they go in the very first month from an 80% order fulfillment up to like a 92% order fulfillment? So it means that before they were delivering 8 out of 10 products for their customers, and now they're delivering 9 out of 10 products. And nothing's really changed besides for implementing 1 or 2 different modules. Because order fulfillment is not just delivering, it's your supply side too. You know, making sure that your vendors deliver your product to your warehouse so that you can actually get it out to your customers. So you don't necessarily have like an immediate change when you make a change to your software. And so we started digging into this a little bit further, and what we found is by providing your sales reps with visibility into the product that you have available and when your product is actually going to arrive, it allows them to sell product that you're going to have. It allows them to make sure that when they put in a cancel date to say this order will be delivered by a certain date, the product that you're going to be delivering actually is going to be received in time. So previously, this customer, what was happening is their sales reps were going out, they had a great product, going to meet the customers, selling things that they didn't really have, or they were putting in a sales order to cancel in July, and the product's only arriving in August. And so what we find is, there's a science behind the art. You're trying so hard to build your brand and grow your brand and all these different channels to try and get your product out there. But then the execution just like falls flat. And that really kills a brand, because what we find is your customers are relying on having a certain story in their store. And then all of a sudden they're missing like 3 parts of the story, and you've got like this disorganized range in their shops. So the first part is increasing order fulfillment. One of the biggest efforts in improving that is taking your sales reps, giving them a tool that they can firstly see the inventory that's available to sell straight away, ATS stock, the inventory when it's arriving for like pre-books, and then also being able to have visibility in your work in progress, or when is your product arriving, so when they do choose cancel dates in the sales order, they can choose the dates that match when your product's coming. So that's the first part, is increasing order fulfillment is providing visibility to your sales team. The second part, which is often overlooked, is calculating the inventory that you'd like to show for each sales channel. So on the previous slide, I said there's so many different channels that you can sell your product through these days. E-commerce, your own B2B store, your own e-commerce store, third-party e-commerce, and all of those different channels rely on getting a single source of inventory. And that inventory calculation that you're using for e-commerce should actually be different to what you're providing to your B2B channels. So, I mean, just to take a step back, I don't know if it's clear, but B2B is selling from your brand to another store or to another customer, and B2C is actually selling to the independent consumer. So what we find is often brands that have their own e-commerce store or supplying product through e-commerce, they tend to have this sort of simple model where they take the inventory for e-commerce and they put it into one section of the warehouse, and then they take all the other inventory and they stick it on another area of the warehouse. And that's a very simple model, and the idea behind it sounds like it's viable. What tends to happen is 2 things. One, you end up having a lot of administration. So you'll have a situation where you've got inventory in your e-commerce warehouse, and all of a sudden you have to quickly get it over to your B2B warehouse. Or the other option where you've got inventory in B2B, and you have to transfer it across into your e-commerce warehouse. So the first part is it creates a lot of administration, and the second part is you often need a lot of extra warehousing space, because you're pretty much duplicating all the inventory that you have for e-commerce or B2C on one area, and then the same product range in another area of your building. So those are the two main issues, but this is where it gets frustrating in terms of order fulfillment. You can have situations where your website runs out of stock and you actually have that product in your B2B warehouse. Or the opposite, where you've got B2B inventory, you've got inventory in your e-commerce store, you get to the end of the season and realize that you could have actually sold that product through your B2B channels. So a very simple structure of having e-commerce inventory separated from your B2B inventory can actually give you like an opposite effect of what you originally tried to achieve with the omni-channel environment. So what we find is a lot of customers, they make those decisions and then they realize it's not really working out for them. Let's try and go to a single source of inventory That's how omni-channel was set up. That's the foundation of omni-channel to start with. So they start off with, they set up a single inventory warehouse that's going to provide information to their B2B store and their their B2C channel and their B2B channel. And it looks pretty straightforward. Like in this example, I've got 6 items, and so I should be able to provide 6 items to e-com and 6 items to B2B. But that can also become an issue. You have what we like to do is a lot of systems that are available will take those 6 units and provide it into each area. And you can actually have a major issue where you go short on, you run out of inventory. In the same way you ran out of inventory by having separated warehouses, you run out of inventory in this environment as well. So the best way of approaching a situation like this is first looking at your B2B orders and saying, we've got 6 units in inventory. What inventory do we have in our B2B system? What orders do we have? And in this situation, I'll show you an example where we've got 9 orders in B2B, and a lot of systems would then say, okay, 9 orders minus the inventory that I have on hand, I've got -3 units available for e-commerce. And that's like the worst, that's almost worse than having a situation where you isolated your inventory for each channel. Because in this scenario, you're saying that you've actually got a stock out on your B2C channel, but you're sitting with, because you're trying to over-reserve all that inventory for your B2B channel. So you can get the first part in understanding that inventory and the inventory that you can provide to each channel is to break up your B2B orders and identify which orders are due in the next couple of months, and then what is the delivery that you have? What work in progress do you have, and when is that arriving? So a hybrid looks at matching your inventory that you have arriving at a future date against all the orders that you have to be delivered at that future date. So if in this example, I had 9 units on my B2B side, I can see I actually got 6 units coming in September, and I can match that against all the orders that I've got in my future, against my, I've got all my products arriving in September, and I can match it against all the orders that are due to be delivered in September. So it's, often this sounds quite basic, and businesses don't really spend a lot of time identifying and matching inventory against orders. And you can often have a situation like this by matching out your future orders. You can still be left with a situation where you're still taking your 6 units of inventory and matching it against future orders, but not entirely matching all the orders that you have. And what I find in a lot of companies is that they prioritize e-commerce over B2B. And that's great in a situation where you've got excess inventory. But if you're looking at your tail-end SKUs, if you run out of inventory on your tail-end SKUs, it can have a major impact on your B2B orders. So in a situation like this, you can, if you ran out of extra small, you might not be able to deliver an order which has 22 units. So if I run out of units on a size extra small, it means that I can't actually deliver a full size cook to my customers. And that's why these calculations become so important as your business grows. So a perfect situation, a perfect result of a perfect calculation for e-commerce where you're matching orders for B2B, having enough inventory available to supply your B2B orders that are due before your work in progress arrives, and maximizing your e-commerce orders is by taking the inventory that you have on hand, reducing it by the orders that you still have to deliver before your next work in progress order arrives. And that will give you a perfect situation. So you can see in this case, I'll have 5 units that I'm going to assign to my future orders, and I'm going to allow 1 unit available on my e-commerce stores. And that way you're maximizing order fulfillment. Because you've got 1 unit that goes to e-com, you've got 5 units that are going to go to your B2B orders, and you won't be left with any sales orders that will be unfulfilled. And what we find is a lot of customers would still like to have a preference to oversupply on the e-commerce side, because it is obviously a better margin. And okay, it's slides disappeared, but what they would do is they'd say, let's look at the orders that are due prior to my work in progress arriving. And are there any orders that are for tier 1 or priority 1 or priority 2 customers? Those are the orders that we'd actually like to secure, and anything for priority 3 or priority 4 customers, which often are bad payers or they give you a hard time, we'll discount those orders. And we'll just take, so the calculation will be inventory on hand minus orders that are outstanding for priority 1 and priority 2 customers. And in that situation, you could actually allow more inventory to go to your e-commerce warehouse. Now, all of that sounds a little complicated, but I think that the nuts and bolts of it is that when you're looking at providing units, when you're looking at putting infrastructure in place and systems in place to provide automatic inventory calculations to your different sales channels, it's often quite easy just to just get started and say, okay, let's just split the inventory and put half in one area and half in another area, or let's just let our e-commerce system run off one inventory warehouse, or both our B2B and our B2C warehouse run off one inventory location. But if you're not thinking through the knock-on effect of stock outs and the impact that a stock out will have on your B2B orders, you could be maximizing your e-commerce orders, but then having terrible order fulfillment on your B2B business. So there's a lot of math that's involved, or at least some thought that needs to go into considering all the options that you have available. And what we find is a lot of businesses prioritize their orders in very different ways. Companies that every brand is slightly different, every brand's customer base is slightly different. But the fact that if you're having a situation where you're prioritizing e-commerce over and above your B2B orders, you can really come out stuck with tail-end sizes, where you're getting one extra unit on your B2B, on your B2C sales, but then losing out on a whole range of size curves on a B2B order. So every business works differently. If you're interested in chatting more about this topic or other topics, you're welcome to come speak to me. We've got a booth down in B15, or I'm going to be at the back after the presentation. Thanks.
We kind of know we're on the wrong path. We don't want to be the Starbucks employees. We want to be the definition of the best possible experience you could have with these products.
We look at kind of the original DNA of where Stance came from, letting the creativity and the art come to the top of all products that we create.
We were kind of the first ones to introduce a new kind of outdoor category.
Our business couldn't exist pre-internet.
We knew that this was a really interesting way that we could do something that's never been done before in the apparel industry.
So much of the Roark ethos is about living, and it really is trying to inspire people and expand your mind and what you think is possible.
And if you like it, come get it. If not,
So like I mentioned, on the Agenda Merge YouTube, so just youtube.com/Agenda Merge, we have about 35 brand videos on there, and then starting again, hopefully next week, we're going to have one coming out every week throughout the entire year. So again, like I said, it's going to be a great resource for all of you to check out and learn more about each of the different brands that are on the show floor. We're also going to be announcing some more kind of cool things with it and featuring some influential people within our industry. So with that, we're going to jump right back into the next session, and as I mentioned, we have 3 more speakers, so we're going to get through them pretty quick. Real quick, has this been good so far? You guys getting beneficial? Okay, perfect. Definitely, we're going to send you an email afterwards with all the information of all the speakers that are here. Again, you can contact them. We encourage you to ask them questions if there's anything that you have, anything. The other thing too is we're going to ask for your feedback. So if there's certain topics we're not addressing, please let us know. So for the next trade show in January, when we have the next workshop, we want to make sure that we have people that are talking about it. So with that, we're going to go to our next speaker. And it's Daniel Graves from AGA Displays. And this is one big thing. I have seen people try to do displays in stores, and they either do amazing well or they fail. And it's one of those things, there's almost like an art and a science to it. And I've worked for a number of brands where it's this is one of the most critical things, and it's, you want to make sure you have a great presence on the show floor. So with that, I'll bring him up.
Thanks, Mark. I think Mark's put together everyone here with a funny accent just to keep you guys on your toes today. So if anyone wants to heckle me, tell me to go back or whatever, you're more than welcome. Anyone wants to talk to me about the Brexit, it's going to cost you beer. And that's one thing I've been asked a lot this show. So I'm going to talk about POP. And POP, displays in general. I'm going to talk a little bit about different types of POP, considerations when buying POP, sort of things that you might want to think about. Obviously, I'd love it if you all bought your POP from me, but I've tried not to be too biased in this. It is pretty simple. I've kind of started right at the beginning, so if I'm teaching anyone to sort of suck eggs, I apologize for that. I'll be available afterwards if anyone wants to get in any sort of more depth than what I have here. So, what is a point of purchase POP display? So POP display is either a brand-specific or a category-specific fixture. Here I've got a category-specific fixture. This is the kind of fixture that a retailer would roll out. So this one is actually a Robert Wayne fixture. For you, those of you who know Robert Wayne footwear, they sell a lot of JanSport rucksacks, backpacks, and this is a category-specific fixture that they would use in store. The other type of POP display is more brand specific. So this is a POP display that's been spec'd out by a brand specifically for that brand. This one happens to be Ion. I'm sure you've all seen GoPro set up here. And I'm sure you've seen lots of other brands that have specific displays out there. One of the other things we do a lot of is dress-up kits. So, a lot of stores that don't have a lot of space. Sometimes what we're asked for is to take an existing fixture, now whether that's peg wall, a grid wall, slat wall, could be a loggia gondola, it could be anything of that nature, and make it look like it's not just some generic thing that came from FFR or Trion or wherever else you get generic POP from. So probably the last sort of broad category of POP is brand signage, and that can be as simple as a vinyl sticker that goes on the wall, goes on the floor. It could be an interchangeable piece here, like Mariah helmets. We also do stuff for Shui or HJC Thor. They all kind of use the same format, but it's it's a specific piece of store signage. Piece we did for Sanook. The one at the end is lit signage. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the type of thing. That one's actually a bar sign, but lit signage is one of those categories that if you can get power to it and you can find the right retailers to support it, you can't really beat its impact for its cost. With the new sort of LED technology, you can have those things in place for years. So I'm going to go through common types of displays. Probably the cheapest and sort of the display that everybody has seen around is the temporary display. By that I'm talking about PDQs, pallets, customized countertops, FSUs and things like retail ready shippers, which some people call box in box. PDQs, for anyone who doesn't know, stands for pretty darn quick here in America. The idea being that you can get it to store very, very quickly. It's quick and easy to set up. If you're launching a brand, that's probably the way you want to go because it is pretty darn quick and you can get it to store and have some exposure. So the one on the left here, this is a Home Depot quarter pallet. Some stores have a format which they give you. So for example, that particular display on the left, you can only really play with the very top 10% of the actual display itself. The rest of it they specify for you and you've got no other option. The one in the middle there, that would be a pre-pack, so we would have a sleeve that goes over that, and that's fulfilled before it's sent. So you actually ship it to store, it's meant to last as long as the product in it, and you trash it afterwards and start again. And this is a pallet pack. Pallet packs can be either way. Some of them are meant to be trashed when they're finished, some of them are meant to be restocked. So just to sort of go back, largely they're made of corrugate board, cheap, easy, medium. Your real work in a temporary display comes from creating a stable structure and your graphics. Temporary displays are all about graphics. You've got to have cool graphics on a temporary display. Store lifetime is about 3 months. Some of them will run longer. They tend to suffer if you leave them in store longer. And one of the things that I hate to see is a temporary display that's been left in store too long, because it doesn't do justice to the brand that's on it. It looks untidy. They wash the floor underneath it, the bottoms of them go soft, they start to limp, they don't look good. So if you're going to use a temporary display, then be prepared to refresh it, change it, go again. And with that said, for brands that are lifestyle brands and are changing their stuff fairly quickly and want to keep things fresh, then it's a good option. You use it for 3 months, you trash it, you start again, you give it a fresh look. The next broad category is semi-permanent. So FSUs, dress-up kits, parasite, countertop, you get basically the same types of displays in all the materials. So these same things that I'm talking about, freestanding units, dress-up kits, parasite displays, which are like the one on the left, where you piggyback a display onto something that's already existing. And the big difference is the materials, really. Materials and cost. So something in this category, you would be looking at something like Sintra or Comatex, a expanded PVC board or a gator board. There might be some corrugate on there. You would expect that it would last in store for 6 to 9 months. You might want to put a replaceable header in there. You might change out a header or a set of graphics after 3 or 4 months. But in general, 6 to 9 months is where you're going to be. You might see some low-cost tech on this sort of display. So by that, you might put a battery-powered LED flasher on there or something, but you're likely not going to see sort of full-blown media players, tablets, all that kind of thing on semi-permanent. It just doesn't last long enough at the store to justify the cost. The last one, and the one that you have a little bit more freedom to do some really cool stuff, is permanent POP. It's my favourite type of POP. There's a little bit more to the structure, to the engineering. For the nerds like me, it's a little bit more interesting. So this display on the left here, it has a 10-inch media player in there. That's actually a pretty common option these days. And one thing that I notice, especially about the brands here at the show these last couple of days, is there's so many great stories out there. And that's like the big change that I've seen over the last maybe 5 or 6 years in POP, is that the companies now that are up and coming, they're not really selling a product, they're selling a lifestyle, they're selling a story, a backstory, and that's almost more important than the product itself. And so one of the best ways of communicating that store is through the use of the LCD player, the media player, and they're getting cheaper and cheaper. So you're seeing them more and more out there. There's even battery-powered options with motion sensors and all sorts of stuff. Middle one is a dress-up kit. That is actually an injection molded piece. You need big volumes if you want to do an injection molded piece of that sort of scope. But big benefit is they last forever, and once you've spent the money on the tooling, they're cheap. The one at the end is a ski display, something we did for one of the brands at the SSIA show, and I wanted to just put it up there today. It shows some panel processing there, which is one of the other common types of materials. So we've really got metal, wood, plastic. The one on the left here, It's designed as a Best Buy, as was the previous one on the left. Again, you're going to get set store footprints. So if you want to go into Brookstone will give you, like a set store footprint. Best Buy will give you a set footprint. Target, they'll give you a set store footprint. So, maybe not as quite as applicable to a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys probably think, oh, Target, I don't want to be in there, right? But, I mean, it's still a consideration. Injection molded piece in the middle there. Lebent is probably their closest competition here in the US, Australian brand. Their closest competition is probably someone like Smartwalk, who's a VF brand. Wire fixture. Combining the two is maybe not so easy. So you need to find someone that knows how to do that, and you need to think about what technology you're going to build in. If you're going to build in, a tablet or a media player or some lighting or motion. There's things out there that, MP3 players, there's things out there that do smells. There's all sorts of things that you can put on a display. And some of them don't make immediate sense. So you have to find a company that can really kind of lead you through that and explain to you what things work and what things don't work. Explain to you the fact that 80% of the retail displays out there with media players on them get turned off because the people in the stores get annoyed at the noises that they make. So actually having a Charlie Chaplin style video that's silent, that people really want to watch, is way more effective than having, your best beats mixed by whoever on the same video, Resources. So when you spec a POP display, you have to think about your resources and the resources of the people that you're using. I have plenty of people that come to me and say, well, I'm buying stuff in China already. And my answer to that is, well, okay, that's great. But do you actually, do you know what you're buying is one thing. Do you know where you're buying from? Is this the stuff you usually buy? Do you know how to spec it? And do you actually want the hassle of dealing with that? So there's a few more considerations. Just because I can doesn't mean I should. Right? And that's kind of what I'm getting at there. And then budget. Budget is a funny thing. People draw some crazy designs and they bring them to me and they say, can you make this? And I say, well, yeah, of course I can. But can you afford it? Probably not, And so those two things there's always a compromise, What can you afford against what can actually be built? And then the other thing that comes into budget, you've not only got, financial budgets, you've actually got timing budgets. If you want to get something installed by October, then don't start it in September because it's not going to get there. These things have to, they have to sort of take time. So retailers are, retailers are funny beasts, especially some of the bigger ones, and some of them have quite tight restrictions. So if you're going to design a display which you have visions of going into a certain retail area, then you really need to know where you're going to do it. Don't purchase 1,000 displays, use 200 of them with visions that 500 are going to go here. Because if you haven't planned for it to go here, when you try and take it there, they might say, well, that doesn't fit. We haven't got the store footprint for that. We can't give you power for that display. It doesn't fit in our area. We have a particular area for that, and this is our footprint. And if you don't get in it, you don't get in it. When we bring in the tech, especially, multi-country stuff is a real consideration. So if you put a media player or a tablet or something on your display, you need to be sure that it meets the requirements of the country that you want to put it in there. If you think you're going to ship your display with a LCD player to 6 different countries, then you need to build it out with a plug that's got custom codes for all of those different countries. So ULs, CTECs, CUVs, FCCs, all that stuff needs to be in order, because otherwise what will happen is you'll send your US spec display to Europe and it will get to the border and they'll go, not coming in here, because it doesn't have the right, just because it doesn't have the right stamp on it, And that, it's all very well to say, well, I'll get an adapter plug. But you can do that, but customs won't let you. So customs will pull stuff on that. So you have to kind of be careful. It's one of the considerations. timing. So I sort of spoke about timing a little bit earlier. I said it was one of the considerations, and this is, I just want to talk a little bit about it. So design engineering, when you start, for us, and I'm going to use us as an example because it's what I know. So if you come to me and say, I want to do a POP display, and these are the rough ideas we've got, and this is where we want it to go, and this is the sort of format, it'll probably take us about 2 weeks to build it out to something that's reasonably photorealistic, where you can go, okay, I like this bit, I don't like that bit, I want to change this bit, can we do this, can we do that, can we do the other, And so there will then probably be a process of a week or two where we go backwards and forwards. You asking me why I did something, me telling you, well, yeah, you can do it that way instead, no, you can't because of X or whatever. Prototyping is another animal. Usually prototypes fall anywhere from like a few days for a temporary display, up to, could be 3 weeks for a complex permanent piece that's shipped knocked down with all sorts of technology in it, and then ship it on top. Personally, I like to prototype where the display is built. For me, prototypes are like a learning process, and not just a learning process for us to make sure that it works and for you guys to make sure that your product fits on it and everything else. I really believe that it's a learning process for manufacturing as well. So what I really hate to see is when people prototype somewhere and then manufacture somewhere else, because the manufacturing outfit don't learn anything from the prototype phase. So there's a lot that they can actually pick up during prototype about how things should be done during production, and things will be changed, designed for manufacture, so they will change things during prototyping specifically for production. And if you don't prototype where you produce, you lose that whole step in the cycle. And I've seen lots of problems caused by that in the past. Production, domestic versus overseas, it's a big argument, right? And most of the time what people want is they want domestic delivery times and overseas pricing. It's not going to happen. So most of the difference, domestic, probably 4 to 6 weeks on a permanent piece production. On a temporary piece production, you're probably looking like 2 to 3 weeks, and somewhere in between. Overseas production is probably actually about the same. You're probably looking anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks on a permanent piece. You're looking, on a temporary piece, you're probably looking 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, the same. The difference is obviously the shipping time. So, depending on how much you're bringing in, shipping here to the West Coast is approximately 3 weeks. That's about what you need to allow for shipping here to the West Coast in a full container. If you want to go consolidated shipment, on a pallet in someone else's container, you probably want to add an extra week to 10 days to that, because someone has to move it at both ends. As you move across the country, like Chicago, for example, Chicago, you could probably add 7 days to that. If you want to go to New Jersey, you probably add another 10 days to that shipping time. And logistics is one of those sort of interesting things. Some people do their own logistics, some people want to have their logistics handled for them, some people will build out their displays with their product and ship the display with the product already in it. Some people want to ship their displays knocked down, in which case you've got the logistical consideration of how do they get to store, who builds them. You want the guy they pay $5 on a Saturday morning to build it? Do you want to build it yourself? Do you want to get an installation company to build it? There's other logistical things besides just, can I fit this on a truck and when is it going to get there? So those are all sort of things, little things that people tend to sort of overlook in the process. I've sort of got a bit of a demonstration here as to something that we've done. Just going to run through a 3-year process that we did with a company. We are actually on booth B11, and I have some displays from this company on the booth, which is why I picked it to come here. So these guys were a Kickstarter. They were probably the first, I think, $1 million Kickstarter. If they weren't the first, they were a very early one. Their brand sort of has gone crazy, viral, whatever you want to call it. So this is a very early display that we did for them, and they did them in a quantity of about 500 of these things. And these things, ex-China. These things will ship at about 100, anywhere between 125, 150 bucks. And this is a fairly small countertop piece. This is a Brookstone format, so it's like 12 to 14 inches square kind of footprint on this piece. It has a 7-inch media player. One of their things is they have a really nice story. It's like a group of guys that were toy designers that started their own company. It's, and it's really important for them to be able to show people all the crazy stuff that you can build with this, this pen that they have. So into year 2, and we got a few more considerations. They're now like growing like crazy. Okay, so they've gone from being a Kickstarter, just sort of selling stuff online, and getting a launch in Brookstone through their pilot program or whatever, to now they're in Independence, they're in Marvels, they're in Barnes and Noble. The display on the left, which is actually a corrugate piece with the little countertop that was in the previous slide sitting on the side there, that's actually went to about 250 micro stores. So they're getting a full suite of displays now, and they're using them for different things. So they've got some Pt.2s, they've got some permanent, they've got stuff which is just going to one particular retailer. The one in the middle there only went to Barnes and Noble. The one on the right only initially went to Maplin's, which is a UK company. So they've got all these different these new considerations that they had to start thinking about, new stores, new formats, and new demands being made on them. So this is year 3 for those guys, and it's moving on again. So what's happening now is they've got a bigger product line. They've got more SKUs. So the plastic packs that you see in the middle and the second display over, now they started off with maybe 10 colors. Now they've got like 110 colors. On the left here they've got a kids version of their product, which is in different stores, right? Kids version is going to Target. They never went to Target before. It's going to Toys R Us. They never went to Toys R Us before. It's in the kids section at Walmart. They were never in Walmart before. So they've really expanded out of like the small stores and the specialty stores, and they're starting to get in with these big players where they've really got some specific rules and restrictions on what you can do and what you can't do. The other thing that's happening with these guys now is they start to get into foreign language. They've got global distribution now. So now we've got displays going through. It's the same display, but it's 10 different SKUs because it's got 10 different languages, even though it's the same display. So that in itself brings in a whole different level of logistics and planning that you don't get in the early stages. I'm sort of wrapping up here really. We got resources. There are some industry associations for POP. Biggest one is Popeye, which recently joined up with the Association for Retail Environments. Those two are now one. They kind of run all the competitions